I won't be supporting this bill, Mr. Speaker.
Paul Goldsmith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We had to listen again to that great Australian Russell Norman talking about economics, and it was circa 1955. Eastern Europe was the feeling I had there. Here we have, supposedly, the government's taking the tax off the high-income earners. We've got a tax system now where 3/4 of earners are paying no more than 17.5% personal tax. A big chunk of that group would be paying no income tax after working for families is taken into account. But that is not good enough for Russell Norman. I just wonder what he'd be really wanting to have as the top tax rate. He'd probably want a 75% top tax rate like Francis Hollande or something like that, and perish the thought for the country if that man became a Minister of Finance in a future government. Now, the Labor Party research unit has obviously got its lines very well organised. Everybody talks about tinkering over there. That seems to be the word that they've been told to get across, tinkering well. This bill, the Taxation Annual Rates Returns Filing and Remedial Matters Bill, which we're talking about here at the second reading, is all about tax maintenance. It's the last thing this country needs right now is lurching all over the place with madcap new taxes as proposed by the Labor Party in the last election. The last thing we need is capital gains taxes. It's still never been explained to me how sticking a new tax on the productive sector like small companies and farms and all those sorts of things is going to somehow improve economic growth and entrepreneurialism in New Zealand. Then they were going to undermine the GST system that we have here, that was the envy of the world, a GST system which is consistent right across the board. Everything's done the same way, there's no exceptions, and they were going to undermine that by fiddling around with fruit and vegetables, and no doubt if they'd had the chance they would return the top tax rate up to 39% or 40% and open up a gap between the top rate and the trust rate, which Michael Cullen did previously, which grossly distorted the system, led to a whole lot of avoidance schemes, undermined the integrity of the system, and yet they haven't learned from that. And I'm sure if Russell Norman got his chance, would be widening and confusing all the tax rates and leading to an undermined system. And I hear that now in the last speech that we're going to start taxing water, and he's thinking about how best to manipulate the currency. Well, you know, I can just imagine him watering the milk and trying to do a good idea there. So this government has got the basic tax settings right back in earlier budgets where we did the tax switch, focusing, lifting tax off work and income and putting more onto spending and getting that alignment right so that the economy is focused on making work. It never ceases to amaze me. In the Finance Committee we talk about smoking, and most of the members understand that if you actually tax something you discourage it, and so they're all happy to put the excise taxes up on cigarettes, fully understanding and believing that if they do that it will discourage people from smoking, but they never take the next logical step and understand that if you increase the taxes on working you'll discourage people in that area as well. It doesn't seem to follow that logic, and so I just encourage them to think about that as we go on. And it amazes me. So look at what the government, where we've got to on tax. We have a competitive tax system internationally, which is tilting the economy away from borrowing and spending and towards saving and investment. It's a simple tax system. We've got 2/3 of the cost of the income tax went into reducing the bottom two tax rates. That's something that Russell Norman never mentions. As I've said, 3/4 of the earners are paying less than 17% personal income tax. We've got a company tax rate at 28%, which is internationally competitive. And a family with two children in this country can earn up to $50,000 a year and effectively pay no tax when working for families is taken into account, $50,000 a year. So I hardly think this is a land where lower income earners are oppressed and are carrying an unfair burden. This is a land where we've got a very good very equitable spread of the burden of taxation. And so drilling down to some of the specifics of this bill here that we have before us at the second reading, the main purpose of it all is to simplify tax filing requirements for individuals and supports businesses in handling their tax obligations electronically. And we've seen here that we've introduced a number of support for giving people in the business sector more flexibility about how they use online and electronic media in the course of managing their tax affairs. And another area is closing up a loophole that has emerged in the last few years where people have started cherry-picking their tax returns over the last few years. If they realise that this year they've got a return due, they pop it in. But if they've had 3 years before where they actually had to pay a little bit of extra tax, that they're not paying that. And so this bill goes in a logical sense of saying, well, if you're going to pick 1 year, actually you've got to cover the last 4 years, and we'll even it out. And during the course of the Select Committee, we did hear a number of arguments about that and have made some changes so that under the 4-year rule, you won't now incur use of money, interest or penalties from the previous date due. We thought that was a little uncalled for, and that change has been recommended by the committee. The application date for changes to the profit distribution plans, another area of this tax, and it was interesting to see Mr Parker, a defender of the big corporates on that score, but we did listen and deferred the implementation of that from the 1st of July to the 1st of October, which has given those companies more time to make the changes necessary. And the application date and savings provision for the proposal to charge GST on late payment fees will be deferred again from the 1st of April to the 1st of January. Again, furthermore, GST will not be charged on late payment fees if the underlying supply is exempt. So some of those things are all in the whole good solid maintenance of a tax system that is working well and that is all about National being firmly focused on lifting New Zealand's economic performance and taking this country to the brighter future that its people deserve. Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Andrew Williams.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.